Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning, and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 695 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Friday, July 18th, 2025, and it is a lovely day here at the Beaver Lodge. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. We've got a rather interesting show for you today because some very interesting things happened yesterday. But before we get into that, Mr. Grizzly, how is your mental health today, sir?
All things considered, I'd say pretty good. A little tired. Didn't sleep well last night. I got a bit of a headache this morning, but that's just par for the course for me. So yeah, I'd say all in all, pretty good. Yourself?
Same thing. Didn't have great sleep. Feel a little dehydrated this morning, and I'm not exactly sure why because I drank plenty of liquids yesterday. But I'm a bit pasty mouthed, and I just realized I did not bring my oh, there's the cup, but it's got a little bit of water in it, so I might have to take a deke out at some point during the video clip to go fill up my cup. Good spirits though. However, just still a little sleepy. Still a little sleepy for some reason. Despite the fact that I got good enough sleep, but yeah, just still sleepy for, I don't know, some days you wake up and you still feel tired.
Yeah.
But everything's
that way sometimes.
Yeah, but everything's good. I just feel a little slow moving, like I'm a little foggy up here. All right. Oh, by the way, forgot I had it on a note to mention it a couple of times and over the week, and I didn't. Happy anniversary, 30th anniversary to Kit Cassie and her cowboy. I believe it was on Wednesday or Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. So I hope that you had wonderful and delightful celebrations because we here at the Beaver Lodge love. So wishing you at least 30 more. And hope that your celebrations were filled with love and laughter and all the good stuff that make celebrations memorable. Because 30 years, that's quite a milestone. So way to go.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yes, indeed. All right. Boy. This one's probably not going to be joyous as a show. There's lots of weird stuff going on. The first thing we're going to talk about has absolutely nothing to do with the main topic of today, but you have to have been living under a rock to have probably not heard about one piece of news that came from the United States in the form of a media network company that has probably obeyed in advance.
It seems to be that way. I don't know if that's 100% the case, but Stephen Colbert
Appears.
of the Late Show, or the Late Show, I should say,
Yeah.
the host of the Late Show, is the show's been canceled and it's ending in May. And then the weird thing is, he's been number one in the ratings for quite some time. They're like, oh, just financial decisions. And I'm like, let me see if I get this correct. So the parent company was being sued by the president for $1 billion or something like that. I can't remember what the amount was.
Yeah.
Over a 60 Minutes article or a 60 Minutes segment in which they were proven to be absolutely 100% correct, if memory serves, and they acquiesced and just settled. They didn't go to trial, obviously, and there was no $1 billion settlement, but there was a multi-million-dollar payment, as to my knowledge. I could be a little bit off on that. And both he
16 million.
60 million.
16.
16, okay. So he called them out for it, said they shouldn't have backed down. And Steve Croft, 60 Minutes, he's no longer with 60 Minutes, I don't think. But he was the guest, and he said, yeah, I don't think they should have backed down either. I think they should have fought it because they would have won. But they acquiesced and paid out 16 million. And he kind of, I think, pissed off a few people, including Herr Drumpf. So I'm sure there's an order that came down from Herr Drumpf to the parent network that just basically said, that's it, you're done. You know, he's like, fix this, cancel that show, or pay the price. I'm speculating. I have no inside knowledge of that. Nobody's come out and said that. It's just a mere speculation on my part.
Yeah. Donald Trump was suing Paramount for $10 billion,
$10 billion.
alleging that 60 Minutes edited an interview with Kamala Harris in such a way that it would favor the Democrats. Not exactly sure how you do that because the source material they're editing is coming from Kamala's mouth.
Yeah.
But you would expect that Kamala, being the Democratic representative, would speak favorably of the Democrats.
Yes.
To start with.
Because
So
that's your job.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how 60 Minutes edited in a way to make a piece that would be favorable to the Democrats because she is speaking favorably about the Democrats, even so more favorably for the Democrats that it would have affected his ability to win the
He's
election.
a thin-skinned, small-peen, micro-dick, narcissist prick.
Yeah.
You can trademark that if you like.
So it seems that exactly Paramount would have definitely won this, but for the privilege, I guess, of I don't know what, they decided that they were going to pay Donald Trump $16 million. And as we said, we have absolutely no proof of this, but it seems that probably a condition of the deal was $16 million and you get rid of that Colbert guy that keeps on embarrassing me 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
Because Donald Trump really does not like Colbert. He's made that very clear in several tweets. Truths, I should say.
Truth Social, his
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ironically named Truth Social. So
Parlay still a thing? Remember? Well, okay, everybody used to call it parlor. I'm like, no, it's parlay.
Oh,
It's spelt incorrectly. It's spelt parleur.
okay.
Parlez-vous français is P-A-R-L-E-Z.
Yes.
But they spell it P-A-R-L-E-R.
Which is parlay in the infinitive, the verb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that network is still going, but that was the big one for a while when people were migrating away from Twitter so that they have a right-wing talking point.
I haven't heard from that for a while.
Yeah, it kind of disappeared. I think it might still be going, but I know that a lot of the Trump sycophants just went on to his Truth Social so he could pocket more money.
Yeah. The show is going to end in May 2026. Like I said, just out of the blue, and the day after Colbert was nominated for an Emmy himself. So obviously, people in the industry thought it was a good show.
Yeah.
It seems that CBS is retiring the concept of the Late Show.
Yes,
Because it's the
altogether.
Late Show with David Letterman and whatnot. There will be nothing replacing it, allegedly. Uh, when they're talking about the cost stuff, it's because that type of programming at that hour, the ratings have dropped over time. So even though it's still the number one show, apparently they think that they might be able to put something else at that hour that would gain more views. I'm not sure what.
Well, the thing is, they also what Paramount, which is CBS Paramount, which is the big
Yeah,
network, uh, what they get in live viewers is one rating, and that generates ad revenue money, right?
yeah,
But what they don't put on the balance sheet, and it should be there, is what they get on YouTube,
yeah,
which is millions more,
yeah,
and they get ad revenue from that.
yeah. And their streaming service and and all that kind of stuff. So not everybody watches at 11 something. I mean, I'm usually in bed, so whenever I catch Colbert, it's the next morning through
I
the
catch
YouTube clips, right?
That's how I watch it,
Right.
because I'm in bed.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, and there's lots. There's millions of people who watch the YouTube clips right on the Late Show YouTube channel,
Right.
and
Right.
there's millions of subscribers. So they're generating revenue there,
Yeah.
and that feed that there is a cost to running a YouTube channel,
Yes.
of course there is, but to they're not creating original content for YouTube. They're taking
Right.
content that they already have and putting it on YouTube and rebroadcasting it. So their cost for that is minimal, and their profits for that are maximal.
Right.
Maximal's not really a word, but I thought I'd throw that in.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it seems like a bit of obeying in advance.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not worried for Colbert personally. I wouldn't even be surprised if we find out before the end of next week that HBO or Netflix picks him up.
Or Turner, like they did for Conan, because Conan's show moved once they canceled
Mhm.
the Tonight Show. Once they actually, let me rephrase that. Once they canned Conan,
Yes.
uh, his show restarted on TBS, Turner
Yeah.
Broadcasting System, and it ran there for a long time. He retired it a couple of years ago. I'm not sure when,
Hmm.
but Colbert may do something like that, or he may just hang up his hat. I mean, he has all the money he could ever want.
Yeah. Or he could also return to the Daily Show on the Comedy Network
Well,
somehow.
yes, because the Daily Show is still going, and that's an HBO property, I believe, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Or even Midas Touch has reached
Midas
out
Touch, yeah.
already. Said, you know what? Hey, if you want to keep doing stuff, come join us here. So
Well, Mr. Colbert, we we'd love to have you as a guest host whenever you like, if you want to get up in the morning instead of staying up late at night. And here's the thing: there's some days when I can't make it because of my new work schedule. So if you want to join the True North Eager Beaver, because I know you're a big fan of Canada and Canadian artists, especially when it comes to Gordon Lightfoot, Joni Mitchell, uh,
yep.
wow, Stan Rogers. Did you see when he duetted with Jack White from the White Stripes?
Hmm.
Well, the year was 1778. How I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. Barrett's Privateers.
Yeah.
They duetted that together. Turns out Jack White has relatives from Nova Scotia. He's part Canadian, which made a lot of sense because he lives in Detroit. Anyway, don't
Yeah.
want to be too far off. But Stephen Colbert, you're welcome to join our show anytime you like, sir.
Gee, that would be something. The Daily Beaver Show with guest host Stephen Colbert.
Well, that way we
I
can
don't
get
think I'd
the
say
American
much.
perspective, right? Let's get the American take on this Trumpism stuff that's happening today from our special guest, Stephen Colbert.
That would be something. That would definitely be something. So yeah, sad turn of events in the United
Hmm.
States. Clearly, uh, out of the blue, unexpected. Nobody saw it coming. I don't think Colbert even knew it was
No,
coming.
no,
Based on that, handled it very well though on
like
the
a true
show.
pro.
Yep. Mentioned it early. There was lots of booze when it happened, and then he was like able to bring, but hey, we got 10 more months together. It's going to be fun, like this. So I hope you'll join us with that. But the 200 people are going to lose their jobs as a result
Yes, yeah.
of this. 200 people working on a show that was doing very well, on which before yesterday or the day before yesterday, everybody thought they had a certain degree of job security when you're the number one show in the time slot.
Yeah.
Just gone.
Yeah, that's. I mean, they've
But
got
that's what Trump
10
does,
months.
right?
Yeah, but they've got 10 months of runway to start planning and looking for new gigs, and
Yeah,
you
but
know,
that's what Trump does, though, right? He pulls the rug out right out from under you when you think you have a little bit of stability. Nope.
yeah, 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 exactly. You're fired.
So yeah, it's I'm disturbed by it because again, when they say the first they came for, first they come for the comics,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Especially the ones that hit a little too hard to home, hit a little too close to home, I should say. Also, he also hits hard, but
Mhm.
a little close to home. But yeah, listen, I'm putting all the pieces together, Alligator Alcatraz, and now comics being canceled, and National Guard being deployed, and talking about removing citizenship from Rosie O'Donnell, and we're talking about coming for the comics,
Yeah, this is
because she moved to Ireland.
1933 Germany.
Um, yeah, listen, the signs are there, man. The signs are there, like, they're being paraded right in front of us.
When he took office back in January, that was the sign of 1929 Germany, and in 7 months, he's made it up to about 1933 Germany. By the time he gets to 1939 Germany, which probably is going to be October. Well, actually, he might even be closer to that right now when I think about it, because Alligator Alcatraz is a concentration camp,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So maybe he's actually at 1939 Germany, and he did it in 7 months. He
Yeah,
just hasn't completely eliminated or taken control of all media, but we've just seen another sign of it
yeah,
with what happened to Stephen Colbert.
yeah. He's a little pissed off at the Wall Street Journal now too.
Yeah.
Although he might not have as good luck or easy time trying to take on Rupert Murdoch.
No, Rupert Murdoch. Look, say what you want about the man. He tends not to back down from a fight,
Yeah.
and he's got lots of money.
Yes. So, yeah, it's the signs are not good. I remember recently somebody had posted uh, a meme of, like, the 10 steps towards
Fascism.
getting to where,
Yeah. Right.
Hitler was, whatnot. And
I thought
somebody
it was
said,
15. Was it 15 or 10? I can't remember. But
well,
we're
no, there's the 7 signs of the 14 signs of
right.
fascism from Umberto Eco, but there's
Yes.
the 10 stages of getting to where to
Thank
genocide or
Yeah. Thank you
something.
for correcting me. Yes, you are
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, that's what it is. Yes.
Yeah. And somebody asked where we were, and I'm looking at it, on the scale from 1 to 10, because as everybody says, oh, this is just getting started. And as we keep on reminding people, and as you keep on seeing all over the internet, if you are, it didn't start with the concentration camps. It
No,
started with a whole bunch of other stuff.
worked its way up.
Uh, and I'm looking at that, and it's like I looked at the thing, and it's like, well, he's already talked about maybe changing the laws so that he can deport homegrowns
Yes.
and remove their citizenship. So I'm looking at that, and I was looking at the list and says, "Oh, we're definitely at 7, speeding towards 8 here." So we're not at 1 or 2
hmm
on the stage, right?
Well, TNC Bio says we're still a long way from 39. By 39, he was invading Poland. Correct. However, he has talked about invading Greenland and annexing us. So, and they've put a plan in place for a military exercise to take over Greenland. So I don't know if he's that far away from it, to be honest with you. I really don't know. Is he that far away from 1939 Germany? I think he's closer than we may realize.
Yeah, yeah. It's concerning. I mean, it's this weird situation. Uh, uh, And I think it probably would be the same thing in the United States, probably more so, but we're sitting up here in Canada and we're watching stuff happen and we're thinking, "Gee, thank God we live in Canada." And
Mhm.
there's a lot of people in the United States, "Well, I got my job and nothing has really changed for me, and, I'm still in my house and I still have" eh, but these things are happening. They're happening in real time. You're seeing about them in the news. It's this weird thing, when a lot of people say, like, when it hit finally, in Germany and throughout Europe, people go, "Well, gee, how did we get here?" Well, it's like, well, there were things happening while you were going to work from 9 to 5 and,
The
keeping
signs.
on living your life as if nothing weird was going on because nothing weird was going on for you.
Mhm.
But it was happening, and I sort of feel like I'm in that situation, as I'm living up here in Canada, and I've got my home, and I've got my sweetie, and I've got this show with you, and I got my friends, and, uh, but south of us, there's this stuff happening, and it's happening in a very concerning manner, and the guy who's doing that is trying to do stuff to us,
Mhm.
I guess, and some pretty nasty stuff to us, um, stuff that could crush us. I mean, he does have some type of desire to crush us in some way. Um, I, this weird feeling of like going about my daily life, and particularly since we're doing this show and like pointing to things. This is going on. You might want to be concerned about this. Um, as my life personally is going well,
Mhm. Mhm.
and but in the back of my head, I keep on hearing, "Yeah, but for how long?"
Well,
I've had the thoughts of, should he decide to turn his weapons or his military forces on us somehow, you know, would I be like the people of Ukraine and say "F you" and stay and fight, or because I do have a certain amount of privilege and maybe
mhm.
there is somewhere else in the world I can go, would I go there? But I mean, it's probably just going to come there eventually too.
Eventually it would.
Right?
Uh,
If he's hell bent on it and he's trying to make it happen and nobody actually stops him early. It's this weird overall existential dread
mhm.
that's going on, and it's this weird feeling of like, okay, well, hey, there are concentration camps in the United States now. Now they come for the the comics. But hey, today on the Beaver Show, it's weird.
Well, so many folks have said, and I'm sure you've seen it online. I've seen it online. I've seen people just say it in public. If you wondered what you would have done during Hitler's reign,
You're doing it.
you're doing it right now. Simple as that. It's as simple as that. I mean, is it going to come to death camps? Uh, well, they are rounding people up in the streets. They are putting them into concentration camps with not what you'd call exactly humane conditions. So, are we that far away from it? And I mean that in all sincerity. Are we that far away from it? And I can't say that we are. I can't say that we are.
Yeah.
It's a strange, bizarre time. Look, I try and remain as positive and as upbeat as I can, despite the mental health issues that I battle with on a daily basis. I try and remain as upbeat and positive as I can because that's what I need to do to keep myself functioning. I'm about to start a new job on Monday, and I gotta take off in about 2 minutes so I can do my first trial run to see how the buses are going to work to get me there. But I start this new job on Monday. It'll be another month before I'll start to find myself in the black again. Like I'll be in the red for a little while because even though I'm going to start a new job, I don't get paid right away. It takes a little bit of time. My first paycheck doesn't come until the 31st, and it will only be for 1 week's work. So, it's a little bit of a stretch between now and then because there's no more EI benefits. That's been gone for a bit now.
Right.
So I do have this thing on my horizon to look forward to. I can see a light at the end of the tunnel and it's getting brighter every single day. So things in my world are starting to go very, very well. And that makes me feel good. But I know there are people all around me where things are not going well. And I see
Mm.
it. I see it every day. I see it in the streets every day. Literally see it in the streets every day. I see the same folks who there's a guy I know in my neighborhood. I just bumped into him when I was walking Lola a few minutes ago. A real sweet guy who has been down on his luck for some time. He got laid off. He can't find work. He has no money. So, he's panhandling. And I talked to him and he says, I'm trying to get a job, but the only thing I can find is Uber delivery. He goes, and my uncle's sending me a bicycle and I'm going to start doing Uber delivery. I'm like, okay. He goes, but you need money to start that because you pick up the orders, you pay for the order, and then you get, when you deliver it, you get, it's, anyway. He said to me the other day, he says, I qualified for welfare. I said, well, that will help. He goes, I'm hoping to get ODSP because he's got some physical injuries. And I see him every day. I see some other people every day. There's a woman I see in my neighborhood who is a severe addiction to narcotics. She occasionally is zombied out from fentanyl. I see her all the time. And all I'm thinking is, okay, this is the tip of the iceberg. There's more that we can do to help these folks, and it's not being done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who do I blame? Well, the province and the city, because they're the ones responsible for it, not the federal government, which is why I think maybe the federal government should step in and start taking over some files, like healthcare as an example, and make it a national system like they have in the UK, because the provinces dropped the ball. And then I just read a report yesterday. Let me find it here. I don't know if you're aware of this, but this one shocked me when I saw this. There's a company called Santis Health. Are you aware of them?
Santa's Health?
Santis, Santis.
Okay.
It's the biggest lobby and government relations firms in Canada for private healthcare companies and organizations. CTV's Avis Favreau works there too.
Okay, that I've heard of. Yes, okay.
Tyler Shandro is now on the board. He's just joined the team for Santis Health. This is, and I'll put the link up for anybody who wants to see it. It's got a lot of government individuals and public-facing individuals who are working for a company to actively privatize healthcare in this country. I'm not making it up. It's legit fact. You can go ahead and have a look. I just put it in the link if you want to click on it. This is disturbing to me that we now have the privatization, the Americanization of our healthcare is well underway, and it has been in Ontario for some time because the provinces dropped the ball. They've stopped. They've cut funding. They've cut back. They've eliminated things from the budget. And let's get right down to it. It's the province not doing their job, and as a result, we see cuts left, right, and center. And it's always the marginalized, the working poor, those in poverty that get hurt the most because they punch down on those folks because none of us can fight back. And all of this gets back to the province is not doing their job. I think it's time for the federal government to step in and pick up the pace. And like I said, I see it. I see it every day on the streets in my neighborhood. And what's being done about it? Nothing. Nothing. Why? Well, because it doesn't bother me. I think that's the attitude many people have. Well, it's not me, but it could be you.
Well, we see it with our healthcare system problems, right? It's like unless you have needed to use the healthcare system in a very emergency way over the past few years, right? It hasn't affected you, so you're not in the streets talking about what's being done in healthcare. But at some point, you're going to need the system, and with the manner in which they're dismantling it, it won't be there.
This is the thing that scares the hell out of me. And we're not being alarmist. We're telling you the facts. This is happening. It's happening in real time, right in front of us. They're not even hiding it anymore.
No. Some of these forces are running their end game because they think this might be their last and best shot.
Yes. And if we don't stand up, if we don't do something, if we don't speak up and yell about it, it'll be gone. And when it's gone, it ain't coming back. Because the powers that be have all of the money. And they'll squash us like the bugs they see us as. When they can no longer squeeze us for a couple of pennies, that's it. We're done.
Yeah.
They'll grind us into dust and they don't care.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my soliloquy for the day. I got to go. I got to go catch a bus to see how my dry run works for my first day at work on Monday. So Monday's show will be about the same time frame, about 30 minutes-ish for me. I bid you all adieu. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you Monday morning.
All right, my friend. All right. Yeah. So concerning, definitely concerning situations, and it's so we're aware, eyes wide open. Saw the looking through the chat here, and saw people mentioning that we should be speaking to the Mycelis brothers as well. Trust me when I say we have been reaching out and sending tweets and trying to get their attention, getting them to notice that we actually even exist. So far, no success, but we will keep on knocking on the door and keep on trying. Hopefully, maybe there's another way that we can get through to them somehow through another media or another avenue. We're looking for other ones, but yes, when the Mycelis brothers had announced that they were looking at working more with some Canadians and covering more Canada stuff, we were there like the first day we heard of it and sent something saying, "Hey, if you're looking to work with them, we're here." But that network is so big, and I'm sure they get so much content and so many people writing to them in so many ways that it has to be one of those things that they happen to be looking at the time your thing comes in, and right, because that's pretty much a cold call, right? Hey, we're here, come work with us. Well, yeah, who are you and why, and do we actually have time to look at that? So and find out who you guys are and if this is a serious thing. So yeah, it's not the easiest. It's not the easiest pursuit because I wish it was just so simple as just writing someone once and saying, "Hey, we're interested," and then they happen to see it and they look you up and they say, "Hey, you look pretty good. Let's work together." But yeah, it's not the way that works. Especially, I think they've got over like 5 million subscribers now, and and we're nowhere near that. So the volume of correspondence that they must receive and responses on tweets and stuff like that to be able to look at them all and specifically see one and say, "Hey," yeah, and for that to catch their attention enough for them to want to take the next step and actually look into who is writing and making the offer. So yeah, we try, we reach out, and it's the same thing with certain guests. We reach out, and there are many guests, senators and MPs and MLAs and MPPs, that kind of stuff that we write to, and sometimes we get their attention online. They say, "Yeah, sure, I'd be interested." Right? Send a letter to, and then we send a letter, and then we get a message from them. The person from the press unit or something like that turns around and says, "Yeah, we got your thing. Thank you so much, but this person won't have any time." And it's like, well, won't have any time this month, or won't have, because we keep on saying it's like, it's not a limited time offer. If they're not able to do it just now, and it's sort of like, uh, I guess that's the senator or the MP will not have time, doesn't have, his schedule is full booked for the next while. It seems to be their way of saying no, not ever, without saying no, not ever. Um, and I find it really odd that you could be talking to the MP or the MLA themselves on their Twitter feed, and and say, yeah, that's something that would be of interest, to send us something. And then you send it, and then it's like, oh no, there's just no time ever. Like, really? Like, we'll take them 6 months from now if that's when they're free. It's like, there's just no time. Schedule's busy. We get that as a response a lot. So it's eh, booking guests is hard. It takes a lot of time. You write a lot of letters, you do a lot of outreach, and then it's not usually. Sometimes it's you send something and they say yes, and you book it really quickly. That was the case with the Nathaniel Arfin. It was really quickly and really easy. But sometimes you're going through two, three, four gatekeepers, and each one has an individual process, and each one of them has a whole bunch of questions. Like, well, what type of questions? What are you looking to do? And then you write it all up and you type it all up again. And so there have been times where we've invested um, 5, 6, 7, up to 10 hours in order to secure a guest. And there are other times where it's literally, hey, you want to come on? And they say, sure, that would be great. And it gets arranged in 30 minutes. There's just no rhyme or any reason whatsoever. So, like I said, we do try to establish these partnerships and get the guests and that you ask for, and take initiatives when we see it to try to grow our network and create new alliances and collaborations. But it's work. It really is work. I I I knew it would be. Um, I didn't expect the success rate to be so low. Um, Earlier on, when we you know had like 1,000 subscribers and that kind of stuff, I thought, or fewer than that, you would expect that. I mean, nobody knows you, but we're now in our fifth season, and we've had guests like Senator Patrick Brazeau and now Premier Susan Holt and Keith Bogue and David Moskrop, and good names that would signify that that we do have a good reputation, uh, and have done things well. But even that, for some people, it's not enough. It doesn't. The calling card isn't shiny enough yet for that. So yeah, it's eh, just a little how the sausage is made behind the scenes. It is a little tougher. It is a little tougher. All right, kits and cubs. Well, um, how do we do this today? Uh, Yesterday and the day before yesterday, uh, the first summit between the government of Canada and members of First Nations dealing with Bill C5, the so-called One Canadian Economy Act, and the Building Canada Act, happened. As we've been mentioning on the show, we had some concerns with this process and how it was going down. Um, Bill C5 itself, when it passed, was already meeting with the ire of Indigenous peoples because there was no consultation that took place in order to write it. And then concerns were raised, and there didn't seem to be all that much done to address them before it was passed. And then we found out about the three. Uh, People have been describing it as consultation sessions. I'm guessing that somewhere along the way, the verbiage changed because the government of Canada did start understanding that this first meetings or 2-day meetings would not be come anywhere near proper consultation. So there's been some change of language that these meetings are not consultation; they're just engagement at the moment. Um, and we talked about briefly, but we did talk about um, sort of dueling philosophies here with regard to greater involvement of Indigenous people. Now, personally, I'm a big believer in something that's called the JIPA principle, and that comes from my days within the rainbow community of doing activism with regard to HIV and AIDS during the height of the AIDS crisis. People from the gay community, um, principally, but from the HIV community, because it's not exclusively gay, and Ian wasn't even at that time, um, had the JIPA principle. That's GIPA, and it was called JIPA because it stands for Greater Involvement of Persons Affected, or people affected, or persons most affected, depending how you want to describe it. But the given that a lot of the response to the HIV crisis came directly from the community, because when it happened, if you remember, if you were a American, Ronald Reagan couldn't say the word AIDS for the longest time while people were dying. That's why COVID kind of gave me all the feels, particularly when I'm looking at the United States. Oh, let's see, a novel virus that emerges. People are dropping like flies, and there's a Republican government, and they seem not to really want to care. They seem to try to get through their day without saying the word. Um, that was a situation that was very familiar to me that I had been through before. Um, so that did happen during the day, and a lot of the response came from the community. So by the time that governments start getting involved, and we're going to run away with stuff and say, okay, well, here's what we're going to do it. Here's what you're going to take. A lot of people said, no, 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 not doing anything to us or for us without us, because you weren't there when the response started, and we're not reinventing the wheel. We are going to build on the stuff that we have created and that works, and that we know works. And with that um, came the whole concept of community-based research, which didn't work so much for the hard sciences. It's not like our community went into the labs and were trying to find new medications. We didn't have those resources. But when it came to, for example, community-based programs on teaching people how to avoid the virus, on teaching people about safer sex practices, on getting condoms in schools, and all that type of stuff. Community-based supports, building hospices for end of life term and end of life care and palliative care, particularly at a time when some people didn't want to touch other people. So compassionate and appropriate care, um, all that kind of stuff, all those initiatives came from the community. And today, as a result of that, and the community having fought tooth and nail for the JIPA principle, when they have the International AIDS Conference every year, it is the largest scientific conference in the entire world, hands down, because of the entire community based research. So, social sciences and sciences together aspect that came along. Within when dealing with the Indigenous community, there's also a similar principle. They don't call it JIPA, they call it nothing about us without us. So when you have these types of initiatives that are coming down, like a Bill C5, where you need Indigenous participation is even uh, too weak a word, right? Because the goal is prior and informed consent. I think there's a third word that goes in there, and I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's, yeah, informed and prior consent. I think it is, but don't quote me on that. There's a very very specific term that's used for that. Um, but the word here is consent beforehand. So, and we talked about the meeting of the first ministers, the first one that we had with Prime Minister Carney, where he was trying to get the premiers on board to this sort of one Canada uh, plan, one Canadian economy plan. And that meeting went very well. But at that meeting was just the premiers of the provinces and territories. And yes, some of the territories are led by Indigenous premiers. Nunavut at the time was, at least. Um, and There were some people wondering at that meeting where they were talking about potential ideas and coming up with some broad outlines of projects that could be pursued. Um, that there was no Indigenous leadership at that meeting. That none of the projects or the plans that we were going to pursue involved any that were proposed or came from the Indigenous community. The same thing happened with the drafting and the passage of Bill C5. There wasn't much outreach to the Indigenous community in order to draft that legislation in the first place. So the two philosophies could be that Canada itself is a nation and we negotiate within the elements of the nation ourselves to say, okay, well, this is what we want to do, and this is what we want to present as an opportunity for collaboration to the other nations, if we're dealing on a nation to nation basis, the other nations of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. And then we go from there. Or philosophically, because First Nations, Inuit, and Métis are represented in our actual charter and their deals are with the Crown directly, and those deals are supra-constitutional in that they precede the Constitution, that even though they are nations and we are a nation, if we're doing nation to nation, because of this arrangement, is that these types of initiatives should involve them right from that moment. Instead, we develop these processes and legislation nation to nation. And then they go through whatever government and democratic or processes that they have in those communities to govern themselves on one side, and they go through ours on our side. And if we both ratify them, then they go ahead. So there's two ways of seeing this process. And it would seem that the um, North American, for lack of a better word, way of doing things, because I don't want to say colonial, but a lot of people might say colonial in this, and it wouldn't necessarily be unfair. Way of doing things is that, we come up and we say, hey, here's what we want to do. And then we have this whole thing and it's all designed and whatnot. And then we present it to them and they say, here's what we want to do. How do you feel about that? And then we might get some pushback and then we might be upset that we got pushback because we're not allowed. It means that we can't go as fast as we wanted. And then, well, we go to court, which is happening now. Right? Bill 5 in Ontario and Bill C5 happened, and we just announced, I think it was on Wednesday's show, that there are 9 First Nations in Ontario that have retained legal counsel and have filed a suit. So already, before even the summit took place, litigation is underway. And that litigation would definitely take more than 2 years. And the goal is to get some projects approved and ready to go so that, hopefully at least at the 2-year point, there could be some shovels in the ground for these major nation building projects. And these are projects that we do need based on what's going on in the United States. So, I mean, it's not It's not unreasonable for the federal government to want to move fast and try to um, focus the mind on what we need to do and to do its part of the work as quickly as possible so that we can have a proposition. So I'm not assuming there's bad faith here, right? I can see, you know, colonial North American style, you know, choose the word that you want here, um, government saying, okay, there's a threat coming from the United States. Um, we've probably got this amount of timeline before things can get really, really bad. So we need to reorient. We need to do it fast, which means we don't have as much time as we would have liked to consult in the ways that we normally would consult, or like to spend 2 or 3 years designing whatnot. We have to go fast. So here we're going to cut this corner. We're going to cut this corner. We're going to put all this stuff. Here's a proposal. Let's go. Let's take it and run with it. And you know, uh, it's not like Indigenous communities are any less threatened by what the United States is proposing. And so it's not like there isn't a sense of urgency from the First Nations community as well, especially when you add on layers of decades upon decades upon decades of, you know, lack of investment. Um, uh, Cindy Woodhouse-Nepanak from the FN keeps on talking about an infrastructure gap between the rest of Canada and Indigenous communities that's valued or assessed at over $300 billion. So it's not like they are not motivated by a sense of urgency on wanting to get projects done and big projects done. That could be helpful. But often it's not what you want to do, right? It ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. And we seem to be in this situation here where we have two philosophies. And it would seem, from my impression, from what I'm understanding, is that a process that Indigenous communities would probably be more comfortable with, especially when, again, you add on layers and layers and decades and even centuries of learned mistrust of governmental processes, because just trust us doesn't work. That has not worked for them at all. Um, Wanting to hearing about something that could affect them and go, why haven't you called us yet? We shouldn't be involved on this from the ground floor. It would seem that the seeds to this legal action and seeds to this resistance um, were planted, were sown instantly in the manner that that bill was drafted. It would seem that the better way to go would have been to contact these communities and say, listen, we want to do this One Canadian Economy Act, right? Which means there are projects that are going to cross your territories, that have the potential to cross your territories. Uh, why don't you come in and help us write this act in the first place? The government of Canada went another way on that. And that raised the ire of Indigenous communities. And then when it was brought to the attention of the government, rather than halting the process to have more time, take a little more time at the beginning to make sure that everybody has their say and everybody feels that they've crafted the legislation so that when the legislation passes, eventually, everybody's all on board and ready to start work. That's basic participative management. And I know a lot of people want to go fast and, and that part takes more time. So it gives the impression that things are not moving fast. 'Cause- But once you get that final that product, because everybody participated in creating it, 'cause there's more buy-in once it is created to actually making it happen. And then the other way is to present something that's already shaped and then try to get someone to buy into that and maybe have to change it after the fact to include some stuff. I personally can't see how C5 goes forward in terms of being implemented without some serious amendments at this point, even though it has passed. Um, Making changes on the regulation side might not be enough. There might be some problems that are inherent with the law itself as it is drafted. The process by which it was drafted did not inspire confidence. There may have been a miscalculation on the part of the federal government that the 10 years of truth and reconciliation that was um, bought into by the previous Liberal government led by Prime Minister Trudeau, who really did seem to sincerely believe in it, even though he didn't necessarily get everything right. Um, that does not transpose to the new leader. The new leader does not get the benefit of those 10 years of work, where somewhere we are further ahead, given those 10 years of work than we were. But just because it's still the government of Canada, when the government changes, it doesn't mean that the new guy coming in um, uh, gets the goodwill of the work that's done before. This person has to prove themselves from the start. And it would seem that this process, in the way that it was brought about, uh, didn't really build on the 10 years of work that Prime Minister Trudeau did. Um, it is Mark Carney is a banker, uh, excellent in the boardroom, and it really does have the impression of a boardroom process. Um, One that Mark Carney would be very comfortable with based on what he's learned, and that's worked for him very well. But that works well in a condition where you're dealing with stakeholders. And Indigenous peoples are not stakeholders, they are rights holders, which is an entirely different thing and might require an entirely different approach. And that was not used here. So we saw the passage of the bill. We saw a lot of people unhappy. And then we heard that there would be these 3 meetings, and I'm not sure whether or not these 3 sessions were planned at the time that, the bill was conceived and then drafted and then, fast track debated and then fast track passed, and still fast track debated and fast track passed as the grumbling became louder and louder and much more insistent. There was a head down. No, we have to do this. We have to do this quick. Trust us. Your rights will be respected. Trust us. You will be asked for meaningful consultation. Trust us. It's just not the time yet, but trust us. It will happen. Well, again, trust us has never really worked for Indigenous communities. So the government, as it was proceeding, was asking people for a lot here. Then we talked the other day sort of about the schedule or the agenda for the meeting. And those started Wednesday, and Wednesday was much more of a technical day, a lot of technical briefings and that type of stuff. So there seemed to be a lot of um, things organized in such a way that government is talking at Indigenous communities, Indigenous peoples gathered, rather than talking with. Like, here's the law, here are the things, here it works, here are the things that we've got planned, here are the things that we've got planned for you to be able to participate and, and have your views known and all this kinds of stuff. And, here are the technicalities so that you need to be, it was like an information session about uh, the act and the intents of government, and here's all the ways you're not going to be left aside. Why not? But not much participation. And there again, had you brought people in on the ground floor, those processes and those events that are scheduled in order to gain participation and hopefully prior and informed consent would have been co-designed with the people whose prior and informed consent you want, rather than just have come down from on high. The second day agenda had the prime minister opening and speaking to people, and then apparently there was some work sessions in the morning, and then later on in the afternoon there was going to be a closing plenary at which the prime minister would be there and would take questions. And we had expressed some concerns because I think, if I remember correctly, there are 643 First Nations in Canada, and one 2-day summit. The first one, that first day has a lot of technical briefings, so people talking at you rather than with you and seeking your input. And then the second day, um, that has a plenary session at the end where some questions can be asked. Doesn't seem like a lot of time when you're dealing with that many other nations. Again, not stakeholders. It's not a lot of time if you're dealing with even stakeholders, but nations on allegedly a nation to nation basis. So we had our doubts that this was going to go well. And d- not wanting to say that it was a failure or a flop, but it did not go at all the way that Prime Minister Carney had hoped it would. And that's not really a surprise to us. I'm not an expert in this field, but I did have an opportunity back in the days when I was a public servant to work a couple of times uh, with Indigenous communities. And let me just say that a meeting in Indigenous culture is way different than a meeting in North American culture, right? Um, Ceremony, the importance of food and breaking bread, you know, um, in a regular sort of North American culture meeting, if you have a whole day, is there a lunch scheduled? Okay, okay, so make sure that people have food to eat, so that they have the energy and the alertness to get on with the second part of the day, right? Um, and that's basically it. It's different, right, in Indigenous communities. Uh, what was taught to me, and I don't know if this is universal, and maybe it's not, but it's kind of important to note what I was told into my ear is that um, Once the food comes out, that's when the real meeting starts. Everything that happens before is, yeah, that's nice and all kinds of, but the real meeting starts when the food comes out. And if you don't stick around for that, because, you need to go home to your family and whatnot, and all that type of stuff, it sends a message. It sends a message. Um, you have to show people that you're interested in them for who they are and what they bring, not just what they can do for you to help you with your goals. And that has to permeate the process from its genesis. At least that's what I was taught. So if you're organizing a meeting and you unilaterally determine the agenda of the meeting and then ask them to come, you're probably not getting off on the right foot, as opposed to collaboratively developing the agenda so as to make sure that what both sides would like to get out of the meeting, that there's a process for that rather than just what the government needs to get out of the meeting in order to be able to move to the next phase of what they were going to do. So yeah, given that this is very much so far a very traditional boardroom type process, Canada met with the premiers. Canada itself drafted the law, passed the law. Canada called these meetings. Canada had Indigenous communities come to Gatineau to meet with the government of Canada rather than going to them and meeting with them on their territory. Canada determined the agenda. Canada determined the speakers. Canada even determined what portions would be covered by media. It would seem that the Prime Minister's opening remarks were covered by media, and then media was asked to leave and did not get to record the opening remarks from Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak of the AFN. I'm sure that she would have loved everybody to be able to see and hear what she had to say, just like everybody got to see and hear what the Prime Minister got to say. Again, if we're dealing nation to nations, as the elected leader representing and speaking for many nations. But that didn't get to happen. So after she had delivered remarks in the morning, she had to go out and then do other press availabilities so that people could hear from her. Had Indigenous people been involved in the organization of the agenda of the day, that could have been avoided. Not sure how much ceremony there was. Not sure if there was a talking circle. Not sure if there was a prayer to launch things. Maybe there was. But there are little elements like that that happened, and little signs were sent throughout the day that gave people the impression that this is not at all something that's going to work for them or a process that's going to work for them. So here, according to Alessia Passafume of Canadian Press, Prime Minister Mark Carney said he was optimistic about finding consensus on the Liberals' major projects law as he met with hundreds of First Nation chiefs on Thursday, but by mid-afternoon, some leaders had walked out of the summit. Mohawk Council of Ganawagi Grand Chief Cody Diabo says he took the microphone to express his frustration before leaving the meeting, saying chiefs expected to have time to engage with the Prime Minister and cabinet ministers, but instead were asked to talk to one another. Again, had they been involved in planning the agenda and shaping the meeting, that probably would not have happened. Quote, I don't even know what this is, but this is not engagement. This is definitely not consultation. I'm speechless, he said after leaving the meeting. Diabo said it seemed like the government was trying to gather people who support its plan and called the meeting a facade. Now, there was Indigenous involvement, on stage and that type of stuff. But again, there's this, because it's been used against Indigenous people so often, divide and conquer. There, a lot of people got the impression that this was which was going on. People that did want to move as fast as the government wants to move uh, got a priority seat for speaking and in prominence, uh, which seems again uh, smacks a little bit of divide and conquer for those who have been on the receiving end of it before. It sent them to a place where they had all the feels again. Carney clarified his interpretation of Thursday's meetings in his closing statement, recorded by chief participating in the summit and provided to the Canadian press, because I'm guessing that part wasn't public either. Quote, this was never a consultation. This was not consultation today. This is engagement, he said. So the Prime Minister maybe catching on over the course of the day that consultation is different. But even if it's engagement, bringing everybody here to start the process of engaging you in what we're going to be doing moving forward, there were some people that didn't even feel that this met the bar for engagement. Again, if you had people involved in the design, maybe if not consultation, it could have been considered engagement. But then again, we come back to the philosophical question: when was the right time to engage? After the bill has been drafted and fast-tracked and passed, or before that? Carney went on to say that once consultations start on specific projects, the repeated process will result in shared prosperity and a gradual rebuilding of trust between the government and First Nations. Carney told chiefs in the room that he hoped to have the Federal Major Projects Office, which will lead work on streamlining developments and its associated Indigenous Advisory Council set up by Labor Day. Again, developing the Major Projects Office, the idea from it, what are its schools, what is it going to do, how is it going to do its work? What is this Indigenous Advisory Council? Who's a member? How does it get shaped? What is its role? How does it interact with the Major Projects Office? These are all things, if participative management had been and engagement had been thought of right at the genesis of the project, might have had First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities involvement. We might not have a Bill C-5 now. It might have had to wait till the fall session for it to pass. But again, these are questions that the community is asking. Well, what is this Indigenous Advisory Council? Who's on it? Who gets to choose? Why some people and not others? Why? If it's just the government of Canada saying, well, don't worry, we're going to have a Major Projects Office and there will be an Indigenous Advisory Council, and here's what it will look like. Again, top down, right? Very North American, some would say colonial, very boardroom. The CEO has decided we're going to do this. We're going to have these processes. Here's how we're going to engage. Now go out and do it and make it happen. That doesn't usually go very well. And a lot of people are asking, well, who did the Prime Minister consult? Who did the government of Canada consult when they decided that they were going to go this route? In the morning, Carney said he was planning to spend the day listening to First Nations leaders' concerns about Building Canada Act, which allows the government to fast-track major projects that it deems to be in the national interest. Quote, I will say a few words at the start and answer questions at the end, but I'm here to listen, engage, and move forward from that, Carney told reporters before the meeting began. He was greeted with cheers as he took the stage Thursday morning to deliver opening remarks. Quote, the economic value of these projects will be shared with First Nations as partners. It will help build the prosperity of your communities for generations to come, Carney said as he began the meeting. After his brief remarks, media were escorted out of the room and barred from hearing Assembly of First Nations National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepanak address the hundreds of chiefs gathered at the Canadian Museum of History in Gatineau, Quebec. The AFN advocated for the entire meeting to be made public, and Woodhouse-Nepanak later apologized for having to hold a press conference outside of the museum. Quote, you should have been in there and you should have been able to hear my speech, she said. The closed-door meeting was promised in June after chiefs said their rights were not respected by the government pushing the legislation through Parliament. The law was passed with support from the Conservatives less than a month after it was introduced. It allows Cabinet to quickly grant federal approvals for big industrial projects that are deemed to be in the national interest, including by sidestepping existing laws. Former National Chief Ovid Mercredi, a name that you're probably familiar with if you've been following Indigenous issues for a good while here, addressed Carney directly in the meeting, saying Carney is asking for First Nations to have faith in the government and the legislation despite it causing fear among leaders. Quote, there's always a limit to our conversations in forums like this, but if you come to our territory, we will honor you. We will treat you with the respect you deserve as the head of this country, Mercredi said in the recording shared with the Canadian press. But at the same time, we would expect you to honor our people and our leaders likewise, he continued, before receiving a standing ovation. The two-way street, mutual respect. Sheila North, the former Grand Chief of the Manitoba Ginnawatanowi Okimakanak and proxy for the Bunabonabee Cree Nation, said she was disheartened by the moderators trying to limit Mercredi's speaking time. Quote, Ovid Mercredi is one of the First Nations' most respected and sought-after knowledge keepers in our country, North said in a statement to the Canadian press. Prime Minister Mark Carney and his government would signal to many of us that they are serious about building relationships if they followed Ovid's advice. Again, we have a meeting, we have a schedule. Whoop, you only have a certain amount of time to talk. I'm sorry, we need to cut you off because we need to keep this moving. Is boardroom North American, colonial, white people meeting. It's not the process that these communities use. It's not a process with which they're comfortable. It's not a process that builds faith and trust, especially when you're running on trust me. Earlier in the day, Carney told reporters that Thursday's meeting is the first step in a process. Quote, as we're building our nation, we're building all nations, building together, building in partnership, he said. Today, we'll be talking about building in partnerships with First Nations, in some cases in partnership, in some cases with projects led by First Nations. He stressed that the law is enabling legislation and the government has not yet identified the national interest projects it intends to fast track. Quote, which ones do First Nations, do provinces, do the people of Canada want to move forward on? That takes work, he said. Many First Nations leaders said Wednesday they had low expectations for the meeting and are warning it should not be seen as the full consultation required on major projects. When asked if he thinks the government can get consensus from First Nations leaders about how to move forward, Carney said, quote, yes, I do. Everyone wants to make the country better. Everybody wants better opportunities for their children. Everyone wants more resources for social services, for health, for education, for community services, he said. The government plans to hold similar meetings with Inuit and Métis leadership. He also pledged to launch a regional dialogue with First Nations and further consultation processes going forward. I'm not sure if that was planned from the get-go, or this is another sort of, oh, we need to add this step to the process we are learning on the way, just like these 3 meetings seem to have been something that they've learned along the way and weren't necessarily planned. Um, so yeah, that is the take here. Uh, with regard to the Canadian press, and you can see that I'm uncomfortable reading some of these things because I'm seeing all the ways that this could be oft-putting, and I'm not even Indigenous. Like, I'm basing this just on my very, very, and I admit it, very limited experience in having had to work with members of Indigenous communities on certain projects back in the days when I was in public service. Um, from the from APTN, and this is by Mark Blackburn here. The Minister of Indigenous Services says major projects that arise under the federal government's One Economy Act that don't have the support of Indigenous communities will have almost a zero chance of being approved. Quote, the outcome of these projects is for Indigenous interests to be there, so it requires Indigenous participation, said Mandy Golmasti during a scrum with reporters after Prime Minister Mark Carney's summit with First Nation leaders. Quote, the likelihood of these projects advancing or being completed without Indigenous people at the table, we heard the Prime Minister in the session, it is, I want to say, almost sounded like zero. Golmasti was interpreting words spoken by Carney during the day-long meeting in Gatineau directly across the Ottawa River from Parliament Hill. Media were not allowed in the room during the meeting except to cover Carney's opening remarks. During his opening statement, Carney reiterated that the legislation commonly called Bill C-5 will have an Indigenous focus. Quote, today is about the future of our economies and how we weave them together, Carney said in the morning session. How we can build a new economy together, an economy that moves from reliance to resilience. We have too much reliance on a certain foreign market. We can build resilience, but we can only build resilience together. We have to move from division to unity. A number of chiefs leaving the summit mentioned that they were impressed that Carney stayed at the meeting for the entire day. Some First Nation leaders are on board with development on their territories. Others don't like that the law was developed without proper consultation. The One Economy Act, written as a response to economic threats from the United States, according to the government, it gives Carney extraordinary powers to sidestep legislation currently on the books, mainly environmental laws, to move projects forward. The 2-day meeting started on Wednesday with a technical background of the bill and how it will work. Day 2 included Carney and a number of his ministers, including Golmasti, Rebecca Alty, Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, Environment Minister Julie Debrusin, and Dominic LeBlanc, Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. That's a lot of government heads talking at Indigenous people after already a first day of technical briefings during which they were talked at. But the goal is supposed to be to talk with and to hear from. There has been a lot of speculation that the federal government has a list of projects that it has collected from across the country, according to Carney. No such list exists. A reporter asked Golmasti for a rough timeline of when a potential list will be shared with First Nations. Golmasti's answer was short. It's a long wait, I think, she responded, which seems to run counter to what the Prime Minister says that he wants in terms of having some expediency. So we're getting some mixed messages here. Alty, who was with Golmasti in her meeting with reporters, reiterated that there are a number of issues that need to be addressed before a project goes ahead. Quote, likelihood of success, advancing Indigenous people's interests, and the focus on climate change, Alty said. We can't advance every project, so we want to see those projects with the best success. Before reporters were ushered out shortly after Carney's opening speech, they were not allowed to hear from Cindy Woodhouse-Nepanak, National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations. Woodhouse-Nepanak is one of the only national Indigenous leaders who was invited to speak on Bill C-5 before it received royal assent on June 26th. According to her speech shared with APTN News, Woodhouse-Nepanak again warned the government against acting unilaterally to approve projects. Quote, I will say at the outset that the process leading to the passage of the Building Canada Act and the Act's content has caused great concern among First Nations people, she said. Many chiefs feel that the Crown First Nations relationship is in danger of moving backwards from the progress we've made over the past 40 years, despite the promises made in the speech from the throne and elsewhere by ministers of this government. Woodhouse Nepanak reminded Carney that First Nations have fought in the courts to protect treaty rights. Quote, "That fight has been remarkably successful. Nothing has been given to us, and we are not going back," she said. First Nations have learned through hard experience that if we don't mobilize to protect our rights, no one else will. During the meeting, Mohawk Council of Ganawage Grand Chief Coedy Diabo says he took the microphone to express his frustration before leaving, saying chiefs expected to have time to engage with the Prime Minister and cabinet ministers, but instead were asked to talk to one another. Quote, "I don't know what this is, but this is not engagement. This is definitely not consultation. I'm speechless," he said. Diabo said it seemed like the government was trying to gather people who support its plan and call the meeting a facade. And then there's some of these things are repetitive from the first one here. Mentioning Chief Ovid Macready, who addressed the meeting and saying what he said, and what Sheila North did say as well, that the government would probably be wise about following Mr. Macready's advice. So we have some people who left the meeting, and then some people who were impressed with the fact that the Prime Minister stayed throughout it, because often at these types of things, the Prime Minister will deliver a couple of opening remarks, whatnot, and then leave. And then let everybody else go through the events of the day. So that is, for lack of a better word and kind of lack of a better expression, one that might be a little weird to use in this particular concept, a feather in his cap. That he stayed throughout the day, was in the hallways, and was talking to people. But the meeting itself, in terms of the agenda, didn't seem like there was a lot of opportunity for actual engagement. It seemed to be a lot of unidirectional communication, and then when there was time to come back, it was very heavily moderated with limited time, without people giving people the time to say their full piece, which does send the message. It's like, we want to hear from you, but do it on our schedule. Not great. I have a clip here for you, Kits and Cubs. This is a hereditary chief of the Wet'suwet'en Nation here, Chief Namox. I hope I am that correctly. But this was on the eve of the summit. And there are elements in here in what he's going to say that also give you some idea of how this was very hastily organized and planned, and probably not in the most respectful way, or in a way that sends the signal, yeah, I actually want to consult with you in a meaningful manner. So let's listen here to what the chief has to say.
I am Wet'suwet'en Hereditary Chief Namox. I currently sit as a highest ranking.
Whoops, hold on. The volume was down, so let's try that again with a proper volume.
Wet'suwet'en Hereditary Chief Namox. I currently sit as the highest ranking chief of the Beaver clan, one of the 5 clans of the Wet'suwet'en Nation. We represent 22,000 square kilometers of unceded, non-treaty lands. We've never signed a treaty. We've never signed a document given any province or the country of Canada any authority to speak on behalf of ourselves, our lands, our air, our very freedoms that we enjoy.
And what are you going to do here today?
Well, if you try to make an appointment with the Prime Minister, you have to do it months in advance. So elected officials were notified on Friday of this meeting, and the deadline was to be Monday. I came anyway because I need to be heard. I was in transit and I got a letter, an email stating, "Oh, we're sorry that we had not notified you of this gathering." If I wasn't on my way, I would not be here right now. I was coming regardless because we need to be heard. We are hereditary. We have never signed anything that would give Canada the right to spoil our resources, our clean water, our salmon, our rights, our title, our freedoms, and remind them that Canada is obligated to UNDRIP, which they're not holding up at this current time. When they put money before humanity, when they put money before freedom, when they put money before the very democracy of this country, we have the right to speak up.
And you were not invited here, correct?
They had sent me one when I was in transit. It was about 11:30 last night, and yeah, for something that is to happen today, I was coming regardless. I don't need Canada's permission or validation to be here to speak the truth and hold them accountable when they want to destroy this country without any input from hereditary or any Indigenous people. If they want to rubber stamp these projects, which are going to add to calamity that this planet is in, we have a right to speak up.
And do you expect they'll let you in?
Well, that'll be seen now, won't it? The very fact that they waited until after a deadline for me to receive that, and it was sent to my personal email address. It was not sent to the Wet'suwet'en Hereditary Chiefs, it was sent to me after the fact.
What sort of risk does the government run by excluding hereditary chiefs from a process like this?
Well, you have to remember the Delgamuukw Stay-Away court case of December 11, 1997, where the Supreme Court of Canada stated that we had not given up our rights and title. We had not given up our freedom. We had never signed a document saying that either a province or the country will speak on our behalf, and only we will speak on our behalf of our lands, air, water.
I think some of my colleagues might have some questions as well.
Well, you've come here, so if you do get into the meeting, what do you want to say?
Exactly what I stated here. How could they put a rush on something so important to the future history of our children and grandchildren without having the proper rights and title holders in the room? Currently, they are just picking and choosing who sits in that room. They created the band system of chief and council. Our system has been there for thousands of years. The name I carry is thousands of years old. I have a duty to uphold that. They should be having a duty to be held accountable for their actions. Why would they have something like this when already we know they have a predetermined outcome? That regardless of who says what, they want to kill this planet, this country, this democracy that we live in. We have a right to stand up. We have a right to be heard, and we will be speaking.
Is there anything that you could hear from the Prime Minister? Like, I know he's not here today, but he's going to be here tomorrow. Is there anything you could hear from him or from one of the ministers in the room that would turn things around?
At this point in time, I think the only thing that will turn around is when Indigenous people stand up together and challenge what they want to do to this country, challenge what they want to do to this planet, and remind them that Canada is on the world stage. They have this great reputation of freedom and democracy. Come live here. When in fact, if you live here, you don't get a voice. We've never given up our authority or jurisdiction on our land. We never will. But how do we hold them accountable unless other people stand with us?
If you do get a chance to address the Prime Minister, what would you say?
Be human. We didn't put this country in a deficit. They did. You know, the biggest deficit we currently have in this country is a moral deficit, not a financial one. They got to be held accountable. You cannot allow another country to tell this country what to do. It's the same way as our law. Our nation cannot tell another nation what to do, and yet Canada is trying to tell us what to do. Look what we experienced through Coastal GasLink, the militarized police, the police state we lived in. To defend a petro state? How is that democratic? How could the world let this happen? And why would a Prime Minister come and tell us what they're going to do? They're not asking us. They're demanding this will happen regardless. They're simply steamrolling this through. Where is the accountability? Where was the discussion that happened for them to make this decision and say that we don't have a right to speak up?
I'm wondering what you would say to Canadians right now about, broadly, like Indigenous people or First Nations people's concerns about the legislation and what they might not be fully understanding about what you're all gathered here for and what you are saying about the legislation.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize for being a little unsteady. I've been up 40 hours to get here. So what would I say to other people? Stand up, speak up. We're supposed to live in a democratic country. We're supposed to have elected officials that stand up for us, not an industry that is going to kill the future of this planet. When we say we want clean water and freedom, we should have it.
Sir, there are dozens and dozens of leaders, of Indigenous leaders here for this gathering. How many more leaders would have made it legitimate? Because you seem to say you've not been invited, it doesn't make the whole endeavor legitimate. What must be done to make this illegitimate?
Why not more of the traditional government? Why not more of the hereditary system? We represent clans, houses, and nations. There should be more. And plus, it should not be put out there on a Friday to respond by Monday. That's not right.
You talk about democracy, but isn't it that hereditary chiefs are not in the democratic system as opposed to maybe band leaders that are elected? What do you answer to that?
How would you describe democracy? Would democracy be something that stood up for people for centuries, or something, in our case, have an elected government for less than 150 years in our land?
All right, thank you very much. Everybody is going to go try and make an entry now.
Thank you.
So there you have it, kits and cubs. Other issues that can be brought about. I'm sorry, I don't know where I disappeared to. There you go. The invitations. He made the point. When you want to meet with the prime minister, you need to make that months in advance. But yes, we're having this meeting on Monday. We're letting you know on Friday. Could you come? The email didn't go to banned email address, but to his personal email address. The email did get to him on time. If he had waited for the invitation to arrive before he left, he wouldn't have made it on time. At the moment that he's given this press conference, this is the day before, this was on the Wednesday, not Thursday. He didn't even know if he would be allowed in. Most of the organizations that are involved, the FN, whatnot like this, are constructs that do not originate necessarily from the community. Yes, okay, there's a structure and whatnot, and everybody that's elected to them is elected by the community, but they're not structures that are inherent, that have originated from the community. Lack of representation from the hereditary representation system. And again, being asked, well, do you think you weren't excluded? You excluded because, you weren't part of the democratic system. So, well, what's democratic? What's a democratic system to you might not be the same thing as a democratic system to us. We come with our own history. We come with our own structures of governance. There are the ones that have been established. When we talk about First Nation First Nation, Inuit, and Métis leadership, we talk about AFN, we talk about Inuit, Tapira, ITK. Can't remember it off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. We talk about the Métis National Council, right? But there are other structures. There's the National Association of Friendship Centers. There's Canadian Alliance of, I think it is Aboriginal Peoples, CAP. There's or CAN or something. But there are organizations for Indigenous people who live off reserve. Like I said, the whole hereditary system. There's other types of leadership. There's not just those three structures that the Canadian government always goes to. If something's going to pass on your territory, what's going to affect your waterways, it doesn't really matter which structure you're a member of or you're a part of. You all drink the same water, right? So yeah, like I said, you can't go and go and necessarily say that it's a failure. I think it was Kit Bucky that announced that. But there are certain things that didn't get off on the whole foot, on the right foot. There's 643 nations. I think fewer than 300 were present. There's a lot of voices that didn't get heard here. And again, like I don't have the answers. I don't know how you. I think it was Kit Linda that made the point here. It's like in Canada we have like one national government, and you're dealing with X number of other nations here. Because how do you do that in a 1 day or a 2 day process and have everybody have a chance to be heard? I don't know. Maybe that's why they're developing these regional meetings now that we're hearing about that they're going to go over into their territories and meet with them over there. Yes. But again, was that intended from the get-go, or was that, ooh, yeah, we screwed up here. We need to add that. 'Cause I do not see, if the government wants to avoid litigation, lengthy litigation, how any of these projects go forward without some serious amendments to Bill C-5. I have another here for you. This case, it's Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation Chief Sheldon Sunshine, who attended some of the meetings with the federal government over Bill C-5, who said during a news conference in Ottawa that both the summit and the ongoing changes to the agenda left a sour taste. It would seem that there was an original agenda set, and then the agenda kept changing. Again, I'm going to guess here, perhaps without the participation or input, or if with the participation and input to reflect it, but at the last minute rather than in the shaping of the original agenda. So let's hear from him.
My questions would actually be directed to, any chiefs who were actually in the meeting. I just wanted to get your impressions from the meeting with the Prime Minister, and do you feel that the Prime Minister actually listened to the concerns?
Was there? I'll answer. Thank you for that question. Yeah, I think I hope that the Prime Minister listened. There was some passionate discussion going on, especially when Ovid Mercredi spoke. That is a feeling of most First Nations all across this territory. And, some of those discussions that have to have within government officials to help them understand the challenges that we face. And as we see this summit, as they call it, put together, and the ongoing changes to the agenda and all of those things, it really leads a sour taste in my mouth. We come here. We come here with good intentions, come here in good spirits, hopeful, but moderately reduced expectations. And we're going to leave with even further reduced expectations.
Obviously, we weren't in the room, so if you could describe what was those passionate comments, I would really appreciate it. And what was there a consensus in the room as to how you should move forward with C5? Because clearly the Prime Minister says that he's not going to withdraw it. He's not going to amend it.
Yeah. I'll start with Mr. Carney's comments to open the meeting. It was all a lot of good intentions about all the good things that the One Canada Economy Act is going to bring. It's going to bring us together. It's going to bring all of these things. It's going to drive up our economy. And yet, that's something I liken to around treaty making. They come with all the good things. They never talked about all the bad things that were going to happen with treaty. So, and that's how I see things when I come and have these discussions. You talk about these legislations that are affecting us, that are going to affect us long term. With that always in the back of my mind, you know, we promise all the good things it's going to bring, and yet we're always looking for what's really behind the intent. And really, after today, seeing what I saw, I can see the history repeating itself with this legislation. It's not going to be favorable for First Nation people as it currently sits. Regarding the comments by Ovid Mercury, he was being honest and truthful about our history and a reminder to Canada of the obligations under treaty, and the atmosphere in the room, everybody supported what he said. There's people standing up, applauding him at the end.
I don't know about you, kids and cubs, but as a Canadian, I would have really loved to hear what Ovid McCurdy had to say. I'm pretty sure we probably would have all been better off and way more informed and had a much better sense of what was going on in that room and what the feeling of Indigenous communities would be had we been allowed to hear that. But that was managed, and we were denied that. It doesn't inspire confidence at all in any way. When the chief here is saying that, you know, people are coming up and they're telling us, you know, what are all the good things? Yeah, you know, this, you know, we'll have generate economic activity and we'll do this and we'll do that. Yeah, absolutely. It might do all of those things. But what else does it do? What's the cost of that? What's the price of that? What is there a hidden fee somehow? What are the potential perverse, and I don't mean that in sexually. I mean, what are the potential perverse effects? The unintended consequences, things that nobody had planned for that might happen. If something bad happens, how do we resolve that? Those aspects, you know, if you're trying to sell someone on a deal, you're usually presenting the highlights. But everything's a trade-off. There's one last little bit I want to show you, and it's from the Prime Minister here talking about it in his opening remarks. There are two sections here that I want to present to you, because the Prime Minister is talking about what the bill is and what the bill does. But this may not be entirely accurate.
With this legislation, the word nation carries more than one meaning. Building Canada projects, national projects in national interest, will build our national economy through Indigenous equity and full participation, equity participation and resource management. Projects built with Indigenous partners, with Indigenous communities. And the point is, one of the points is that the economic value of these projects will be shared with First Nations as partners who will help build the prosperity of your communities for generations to come. By moving forward together, we can write a new chapter. We together can write a new chapter in the relationship between the Government of Canada and First Nations. And those aren't just words. This isn't an aspiration. This is the law. This is the law as it is written. The plan is embedded in the law itself. In many respects, this is the first federal legislation to put Indigenous economic growth at its core. We now have the opportunity to realize it. So today we're going to discuss how we can do this together, particularly by hearing directly from you about what you want to build, how you want to build to help build our nations. Ishkode.
All right, and then I will fast forward to another part in the speech here, in his opening comments, that again where he's talking about the bill.
The conversations today are about hearing from you as participants in building First Nations communities as we together build our nation. And we fully recognize there's many diverse perspectives, which is exactly why we've assembled this group. And thank you again for coming physically and virtually and in spirit. To further that outreach, next week I will meet with the Inuit Crown Partnership Committee and soon thereafter with Métis leadership to continue these conversations. But before I cede the floor, I just want to spend a few more moments on how we would like to move forward. I'm going to start again on how we intend to go on. Respecting the rights of Indigenous peoples is a fundamental purpose of the Building Canada Act. The Act requires meaningful consultation with Indigenous peoples, both in the process of determining which projects are in our collective interests and in the development of the conditions for those projects going forward. This is a legal requirement in the Act, which honors Section 35 of our Constitution and the duty to consult. It upholds the government's commitment to implement the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, including free, prior, and informed consent. It helps to help put this into action. The new Major Federal Projects Office will have that Indigenous Advisory Council to advise on the implementation of this bill and to ensure that Indigenous perspectives are fully integrated at each stage of the process. That council will be comprised of First Nations, Inuit, Métis, and modern treaty and self-government representatives. We'll talk more about the structure and the operation of that council later today. Now, being a reliable partner to Indigenous peoples.
All right, so in those sections, kits and cubs, a lot of that sounds good, but there is an impression from a lot of people that the Prime Minister doesn't actually know the contents of that bill. Because to a lot of people who are reading C5, because the final decision ultimately rests with Cabinet, and there are a certain number of laws that Cabinet can unilaterally override when he says it's enabling legislation. This is one of the things that it enables, not only for this process to take place, but how it is that deals, the projects finally do get approved. That all these things that he says that the bill requires by law, there's this clause in it that basically says, yeah, but all of this can be overridden. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know if that's indeed the case, but there's a lot of people that have that impression. And it's not like Indigenous communities are not able to afford some of the best lawyers. So if they have that impression, odds are, at best, there's some wording in the bill that could be clearer or more precise, or the bill doesn't actually do what the Prime Minister says that it is doing. That might be his intent. And the Prime Minister is not a legislator and hasn't been for a long time. It's been a high-level bureaucrat in the banking sector. So it's possible that he may not be briefed as well as he needs to be on what that bill actually does based on the words that appear on the paper. Not everybody's confident that that interpretation, when he says that it's in the bill, it's inherent to the bill. The words are there, but if the bill is structured in such a way that there's an overriding clause that says, yes, this is what we're doing, and this is what we aspire to do, and this is what we plan to do. But failing that, we can override this. Then it's not a guarantee. And again, then it becomes trust me legislation. And we get back to the original point with, well, how well has trust us worked between Indigenous people and the federal government? And if the Prime Minister doesn't seem to be willing to amend, as we kind of saw in that press conference, I'm not sure how he's going to get a lot of those deals, those major projects, with any shovels in the ground within 2 years. And then when we hear about the press conference that took place later with with Mandy Goldmasty, the Minister of Crown Indigenous Services, and Rebecca Alty, this will take some time, and I don't foresee any project going through that would impact Indigenous communities if they don't say yes, if there isn't, and there's the term free, prior, and informed consent. Those were the three elements the Prime Minister mentioned in the speech. I'm not sure how that happens. So lots of questions left, and a little bit of a general feeling of uneasiness. The internal optimist in me would like to hope, but I think we can safely say that if not a failure, this did not get off on the right foot. And there's going to be a lot of work to be done in order to be able to get something out of this at the moment. Let's hope that the meetings with the Inuit people and the Métis people are better organized, and maybe that the agendas, there's an openness to revising the agenda in such a way that includes their input at least. Let's hope that there's some learning from this meeting in the way that the other two are organized, and in the regional outreach initiatives that are supposed to follow this. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless, so please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really love it when you do. Remember, sharing is caring. Well, I did say that already. So if you can share our content with a little word of yours, we really appreciate that because you are influencers in your community, and that type of advertising is priceless. If you would like to make sure that you do not miss an episode, well, you don't have to, thanks to the generous support of the Ray Girl, who sponsors our pod page. If you're listening, podpage.com/the-true-north-eager-beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And if you go there and click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. Thank you for doing that. The reason why I stumbled over myself is that I was looking at the time and I was trying to see if I could do this quick enough to get done before 2 hours. And then I realized that, well, when we put the ending credits in there, that's not going to happen. So I'm going to be going over 2 hours anyway, so I can slow down and make sure I do the extra in the right way. Kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in other ways, then like Kit Cassie and Kit Elaine, you can surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we have 3 buttons for you: like, share, and subscribe. If you give them a little click, well, that helps us with the algorithm, and it gets us a little bit of happy too. So thank you so much. Come join the DAMFAM. The water's nice here. And kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in other ways, we would definitely appreciate your help with the costs that we incur to bring this show to you. Internet subscriptions, news source subscriptions, advertising, marketing, everything. A lot of that requires some finances in order to get done. And because it is your show too, hopefully you would be getting enough out of the show and that it resonates with you enough, and you would like to encourage our efforts. And you can do that with a donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund. And if you drop a little coinage in there, again, makes us very, very happy. And it also increases your sex appeal by 28.3% because tipping is very, very, very sexy. So buy your favorite beaver a mug of hot chocolate, or your favorite grizzly a cup of bitter dark coffee. Say, add a beaver, add a grizzly, and that helps us bring this show to you. If you would like to buy Canadian because you're doing that, it's very important, and you want to bypass the USCE Tech Bros, a direct bank transfer to our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, is another way to send your donation. It is 100% Canadian, and the bonus is that we get 100% of your donation. There's no middleman. So thank you if you donate that way. truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is also the address at which you can write us, because we love to hear from you. We want to know what you think about the show. We got some good comments about our interview with Nathaniel Arfin yesterday. So thank you everyone who watched that and appreciated it and thought that it was a good interview. We do try our best to bring good interviews to you. So thank you for those who found that we did good work on that one yesterday. We appreciate those compliments very much. So do write to us, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. And if you would like to write to us on our socials, at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge on the Jitter, or True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, which is our original home, or if you're watching on our YouTube page, either live with the DAMFAM or afterwards at your own convenience, right down here in the comment section. Leave us a little something. We read absolutely everything, even though we're not able to get back to you. And as is the case for your donations, all of your submissions, written submissions, get factored in and go back into the show so that we can improve it and make it better for you. So thank you so much for everything that you do, either to promote us or to help us get better by either sending us some tips and some suggestions and even constructive criticism. We do appreciate it. And it means a lot to us that you take the time to do so. So thank you for that. Because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs, remember, if you have the opportunity, please go to mypcalberta.ca to sign the petition there in order to ensure that the new Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta will be able to register with Elections Alberta. This is very, very important that it be done. Also, kids and cubs, if you have the opportunity, please make a donation to Bonnie Critchley's election campaign fund. That would definitely mean the world to her, because she is in a electoral district that is over 51,000 square kilometers large, and a little bit of gas money goes a long way when you're trying to defeat Pierre Poilievre, that has an organization that has more money than God behind it. So donations at bonniecritchleyindependent.com is where you would direct that. And if you happen to be living in Battle River Crowfoot and would like to help, volunteers at bonniecritchleyindependent.com is the place to write. When you're got a writing that big and you need to knock on a lot of doors and put up some signs and all that kind of stuff, all the help one can get really does matter. And I'm sure that you would be very grateful for your contribution. Another thing that's out there, kids and cubs, there's Our Commons petition out, and I will put the link here for you in the chat. Hopefully it's not too long and I don't have to tiny URL it. There we go. I think it did appear. Good stuff. But if you are listening, kits and cubs, if you go to rcommons.com and look up petition E-6488, it's a petition on social affairs and equality. And it's important because it seems that Canada does not have a disability commissioner. And there are some people, I think this is a initiative that is led by Jay Woodruff from Rockland, Ontario, and I think it's been sponsored by Elia Gazan, who is the member for Winnipeg Centre, Manitoba, representing the New Democratic Party caucus. But it seems here, according to the statement here, it says the disabled community, whereas the disabled community represents 1 in 4 Canadians, Canada ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities on March 11th, 2010. The CRPD is an international human rights treaty aimed at protecting the rights and dignity of the disabled community without discrimination and on an equal basis with others. And the disabled community has not had appropriate upholding of rights as set forth by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We, the undersigned people of Canada, call upon the Government of Canada to 1. Demand the Governor and Council appoint a Disability Commissioner of Canada, that the Disability Commissioner shall be appointed by the Governor and Council by commission under the Great Seal after consultation with the leader of every recognized party in the Senate and the House of Commons, and after the approval of the appointment by resolution of the Senate and House of Commons. The incumbent shall hold an office for a 7-year term. The Disability Commissioner shall investigate complaints from people who believe they have been denied rights under the Accessible Canada Act and make recommendations to government institutions. And the Disability Commissioner shall table an annual report to Parliament as well as periodic report cards on the performance of the individual departments. And this Disability Commissioner shall regularly hold public consultations related to the subjects of the reports to Parliament, as well as for their periodic report cards on the performance of individual departments. So this is somebody that wants to set up an officer of Parliament, similar to the Auditor General or the Official Languages Commissioner, but for the disability community specifically. At the time I learned of this petition, it still did not have enough signatures in order to be able to go forth, and it will close for signature on July 22nd, 2025, which is just a few days from now, 4 days. So it has 1,981 signatures now. I'm hoping that that might be enough by now. I don't actually know what the actual number of signatures it requires in order for it to be tabled officially. But yes, kits and cubs, if you would please go to rcommons.ca and look up petition E-6488 to add your signature to that, and to ensure that we do have a Disability Commissioner of Canada, because that's something I'm surprised we actually don't have already, believe it or not, considering that legislation in 2010, our ratification of that piece of I don't even what you call it, document that does treaty, I guess it would be international, treaty that did seek to protect the rights and the dignity of the disabled community. So if you would be able to just take a moment out of your day to go and add your signature to that petition, I would be very grateful for it. And I know that we have a very big listenership from within the disability community. So you would be directly giving a hand to a lot of members of the DAMFAM by doing so. So I thank you for that. All right, kits and cubs, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourselves. Have a delightful weekend. I was thinking of maybe doing a bonus beaver later today because there was a lot of stuff. There was the announcements with the steel industry and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure what my day is like and whether or not I'll be able to. So if I am able to, it would be at a rather short notice, but I wouldn't necessarily count on it today. So there might be a surprise bonus beaver later today if I'm able to cobble everything together. If not, it might have to wait until Monday. But I do have a lot more content to be able to get to you from this week, other things that have happened, and would hopefully not like to have to skip it because events seem to be happening and coming fast. All right, kids and cubs. We are at the audience participation portion. So if I could, from all of you, on the count of three, get a Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. That would be absolutely delightful and helpful. So 1, 2, 3. Ooh, I think I even heard some drumming in the background on that one. Well, hey, who am I to say no? Your queen lives to serve. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, let's got just a little bit of news of Canadians who are making us proud. I believe, I hope that they're starting this weekend, if I got it right. But the World Swimming Championships will be taking place. I think they are out of Singapore. Unfortunately, Penny Oleksiak will not be competing. It seems that there was an issue, they call it a whereabouts issue with regard to the drug testing that they usually have to do. Apparently, there was a period of time for which they didn't know where she was supposed to be, and it seems that it was some type of administrative error. And she decided to pull out of the competition. Not that she was asked to; she did it voluntarily, simply because if she did compete and people decided to look more into this, it could have created some problems for the team. So she just voluntarily withdrew, which is a shame because she had worked so hard to be able to get to the point where she would be swimming in individual events again, and she did qualify for some. But it seems that she decided to take one for the team so as to not be able, so as that there not be any distractions whatsoever. But Summer McIntosh and the rest of the team will be there. Summer McIntosh will be looking to try to set will win 5 individual gold and set 5 new world records. So it'll definitely be an exciting time. Also, the World Women's 19 and Under Basketball Championships are still taking place, and we are in the playoff rounds. And currently, actually, in the quarterfinals, Team Canada is taking on Japan, and they are on the court right now with in the second quarter with Team Canada leading Japan 43-26 at the moment. And as well, the World Water Polo Championships are on, and Team Canada men's team did make it to the playoffs, and they are in the I believe, eighth of finals right now. Unfortunately for Team Canada, they are taking on Team Montenegro, which, despite being a small nation, is actually a bit of a water polo power. And they are now at halftime, and unfortunately, Team Canada is trailing 12-3. The men's water polo team made it to the World Championships and got to the playoffs is a good achievement because typically, over the past few Olympic cycles, it's been our women's team that's been the stronger team. This year, for some reason, they did not qualify for the World Championships, which was actually surprising. So it was nice to see that Canada was still being represented and is among some of the best teams out there in the world. They have done us very proud. So doesn't look like that will be a victory for Team Canada today there, but it doesn't matter. It's a stepping stone in a rebuilding process, and it's nice to see the team having some success. All right, kids and cubs, that's all I've got for you right now. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Hopefully, I might be able to see you a little bit later today. If not, it will be on Monday. Amour et bisous. Have lots of fun. Okay, bye.